We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Meet Christine. She loves shopping. And this is the sound of fashion overload. Too many fabulous things, not enough space. So Christine started selling with The RealReal.
I've always loved collecting designer pieces. Gucci bags, Prada heels. But my style keeps evolving. Selling with The RealReal? Game changer. I earn more, and they do everything.
Seriously, just drop off your items or schedule a pickup. We handle the photos, descriptions, pricing, even shipping. You just sit back and watch your items sell fast to our 38 million members.
And I get peace of mind knowing I earn more selling with The RealReal than anywhere else.
Exactly. That's the sound of your closet working for you. The RealReal. Earn more, save time, sell fast. And right now, you can get an extra $100 site credit when you sell for the first time. Go to therealreal.com to get your extra $100. Therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
The Tampa Bay Bucs, Craig, picked by no less an eminent figure than Bruce Arians when we had him on recently, and check that interview out wherever you get your podcasts, was full sure that the Bucs are going to bounce back and win this division. We were saying when we were talking about the Panthers that the Bucs effectively sideshow bobbed themselves out of this one. They were in the driving seat. They looked like they had the inside track on the division, only to drop a couple of terrible losses, including one against the Panthers, which sealed their fate. Mike Evans gone and Levante David retiring in the offseason. Those are two big holes for them to fill. How do you think they approach this draft?
I think linebacker is definitely one that you need to look at with Levante David gone. They have Alex Anzalone, who's come in. Obviously, he's come from the Lions, I believe, and the Saints before that. So, he's a good pickup, but he's a veteran now. He's not the spring chicken that he was once. And they do have last year's draft pick, Savokia Dennis, who was okay, and he was, he did start for them last year. But it's easily upgradable. The problem is that at 15, it's a reach to go for one. I think most of the sort of main linebackers are going to be off the board by then, and you're probably really looking towards a second round for CJ Allen from Georgia, if he was to drop, or likely Jacob Rodriguez. But there is a bigger issue for me.
15 is one of those funny positions to pick, though, because it depends on what's happening. Obviously, it always depends on what's happening ahead of you, but you're in that zone where you can hope that one of those big players falls to you. And depending on which mock draft you look at, I've seen David Bailey fall out of the first round. I've seen other players fall down that board. Like I see the Bucs as just about in that zone where they could get really lucky and get best player available and get somebody who's in excess of what they might have otherwise hoped to get.
David Bailey is exactly the position that I do believe that they need to go, which is edge. Yaya Diaby's quality pass rusher for them. Hassan Reddick is slowing down, though, and they really need to get someone in to replace him, even on a rotational basis, for one season until he probably moves on. They picked just before the halfway point. Again, they're probably not looking at some of the higher names. If someone like David Bailey was to fall, I think they would absolutely snap him up. But I think there's the older Akeem Mesidor, who's from Miami, but he has injury concerns, and every team is going to have to do their due diligence on whether they are, sorted. It also, if they want to go run defending, then Keldrick Falk is there. And I think that he's a great run defender who could shore up that the edges for them against some of the other teams in the division, like the Falcons, who have Bijan Robinson, who obviously will cause them nightmares for twice this season. So I think edge is probably the way that they're going to have to go. But yeah, linebacker, if a linebacker falls, snap him up. If not, do you reach? That's the question.
Ciaran Boyle, I'm looking at the NFL mock draft database, and Akeem Mesidor, actually, who Craig just mentioned, is the player predicted to go to the Bucs in that consensus draft. Shane nodding away there as well. He's from the U, so he's a home state boy. That would be a great pick for the Bucs if that happens for them.
It would be, yeah. And like Craig said, edge is a big need for this team. I mean, they were dead last in red zone defense last year. Just could not. What was the big thing? What was the major knock on the Bucs last year? They just could not stop the run. They just could not do it, and they coughed up so many points in the third and fourth quarter that edge or a big physical imposing D tackle is gonna have to be kind of high on their list of priorities. Mesidor, love him and Bain, that tandem last year. They were just coming around the edge, just crushing people. A huge part of why the U was successful last year. I really like that Mesidor pick. But you're also looking at other spots on that defense too. What parts of that D suffered, and it was corner for me. I mean, they really had a tough time at corner,
and they've lost Jamel Dean, haven't they? If memory serves me, he's gone.
Yep, he's gone. So I mean, you're looking at to add to that position. Look at people like Avion Terrell from Clemson, big physical dude. I mean, a lot of the thing with these corners, they're not physically tall, as generally corners aren't. They're all 5'11", 6 foot, but they are real bruisers. If you saw the 49ers documentary, you remember Ronnie Lott and just the pure impact he had. These guys are coming out absolutely yoked, and between him and Colton Hood out of Tennessee, just huge. That just putting the body in positions that few people would, and they're just hard hitters, real imposing figures. And you don't think of corners as that kind of, especially nowadays, but these guys are really hard hitters out of Clemson. And Clemson played in a division that's not as strong as the SEC, but those guys, especially Terrell, he had a really good season with Clemson. You're looking at linebacker too. They got to fill in that Levante David gap. Tight end, that's another one. Kalijah Cansey's going to need help out there. It's definitely kind of a run or a defense heavy look that they're going to need. I mean, they went 2-7 down the stretch last year, and that's just killing the front office. I mean, the division was in their back pocket for the longest, and that slide was just unforgivable. They can't let that happen again. But you talk about on the defensive side, we still have all those nice pieces they have on the offensive side. I mean, the running back game is nice and strong. The wide receiver room, despite losing Mike Evans, is nice and healthy with McMillan and Egbuka back there, and another year of Sean Tucker. That's going to be a nice kind of help to them. But if we're looking at draft stuff, do we need to replace Mike Evans, or do we believe in the room we have right now? But definitely that front four, either edge or a big D tackle to help out Cansey, Vita Vea. That's going to have to be the move for the Bucs to, they're going to hate what happened at the end of last year. It's really going to leave a horrible taste in their mouth in the offseason. They're going to want to come back and just be that kind of imposing physical team again.
Shane, Bruce Arians' reason for picking the Bucs is that he just thinks they have the best offense in the division. He rates Baker Mayfield as the best quarterback in the division, and has a lot of confidence in him. And indeed, Bruce Arians' pick is backed up by the bookies, who have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as favourites to win the division. Is it a given, though, that they go defense, or Ciaran's mentioned a couple of potential offensive directions that they may look in, and at 15, as we were saying, the draft can give it them, the draft may take it away, and they may go for the best offensive player available if they can't get that elite edge or the guy that they want to shore up the defense or start shoring up what was their weakness last year.
I don't know. I think defense is where they should go, but I mean, how many times have we sat back in the draft and we thought that the common sense thing was one thing and it went a completely different direction? What's interesting is
what was your great quote, Shane, that you said in a self-deprecatory way, but I think could apply to all of us, to the surprise of no one. I know nothing.
Yeah, that was the Falcons. Maybe the NFC South is always there to try and undo the way that we look at these things, and it's interesting. I'm just trying to take a look through the roster here, and there's nothing necessarily on the offensive side which is screaming out that it has to be fixed immediately. I mean, I know they've lost Mike Evans, but they have plenty of wide receiver talent in there to build on. The offensive line probably needs work, but is it a talent issue there that's really holding them back, or is it more sort of schematically? I think defense is what let them down in that 2-7 run that Ciaran alluded to earlier. So I don't know. It really depends, unless they just have a genuine graw for somebody that they're speaking the face to face. So, and even then, it's somebody is either sliding down to 15 or they're making a decision to say, hey, there's somebody out there that we're making a move for here. will try and move up 2 or 3 places in the draft. And I just don't see that happening because the whole front seven is completely in flux here. Well, who can you fully rely on in this Tampa Bay defense apart from Vita Vea? And even then, he's the wrong side of 30. And that's in terms of how a team is sort of building properly into the future. As much as as a nose tackle, he's been playing some exceptional football. Who's around him? How are they getting pressure in? You talk about the fact that some teams aren't necessarily drafting for depth. I know Ciaran was talking about it. There's the Panthers. I think the Bucs probably need to start drafting for depth on defense because injuries can take a toll quickly. You can't let a season spiral like the way that happened to them again last year. So yeah, it's we were talking earlier about maybe going for Akeem Mesidor, and as well as that, few other players. I mean, I see some people suggesting that Kedrick Falk might be somebody that they should be considered in round 1. I'm not quite sure whether that's a great way to spend their capital. Linebacker, I definitely think they could wait until the second round. Again, I've seen people mention the likes of Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech. I've seen that the linebacker class this year is quite deep. You could probably wait till the second or third round to try and fix that. But for me, it's what makes sense and what they should be doing first and foremost is trying to get as many of those edge players and linebackers sort of fit in there as possible, because in the free agency, yes, they brought in Ashawn Robinson and Muhammad as well to try and front up that front set, and Alex Anelzoni as well to try and front up that sort of pass rush. But it's just not. It doesn't feel like enough. It doesn't feel like they've invested in enough and tried to create depth and create identity into defensive football, which we thought they had enough of so they can push ahead. We were sitting here last year and we weren't talking about the Buccaneers being in challengers for the division. We're talking about them being challengers for the NFC, and that completely fell apart. And his defense where that fell apart. And sometimes reaction from last year is the greater driving force rather than the bigger vision. But I think it has to be this time, especially when it comes to those front players.